So we bought a lake cabin. Not a fancy, new-build monstrosity, but a charming, slightly weathered A-frame on a gorgeous slice of Willow Lake. It was my daughter Chloe's dream. She's 19, a nature-loving photography student, and this place was going to be her sanctuary. The plan was for her to spend the summer there, working a local job and just breathing. The first weekend we got the keys, we were buzzing. We pulled up in my beat-up Ford F-150, loaded to the gills with Chloe's dorm leftovers. A mini fridge, a stack of milk crates full of books, a ridiculously large stuffed sloth, and a box of her prized succulents. That's when I met Brenda, or, as I would come to know her, the HOA president. She materialized from the house next door, holding a small, yappy dog that matched her perfectly coiffed, helmet-like blonde hair. She was wearing pristine white capris and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, hello there. You must be the new owners," she trilled. "I'm Brenda, president of the Willow Lake Shores Homeowners Association. We're so thrilled to have you." We shook hands. "I'm Mark, and this is my daughter, Chloe. We're excited to be here." Her eyes flickered over my truck, which was parked legally on the street, and then to the items we were carrying. The smile tightened. "Lovely. I'll just pop the welcome packet and the bylaws in your mailbox. It's very important you familiarize yourself with them. We pride ourselves on a certain aesthetic here at Willow Lake." I should have known right then. The word aesthetic from an HOA president is like a shark saying it prides itself on a certain diet. The welcome packet was a binder thicker than a phone book. I skimmed it that night. The rules were creative. Regulation 4.2.c. Lawn grass must be maintained at a height between 1.5 and 2.25 inches. I'm not kidding. A 3/4-inch window for grass. Regulation 7.8.a. Exterior trash and recycling bins must be stored from view and may only be placed at the curb after 6 p.m. the day prior to collection and must be returned to their designated storage area by 8 p.m. on the day of collection. Regulation 12.1. All exterior decorations, including but not limited to garden statuary, wind chimes, and flags, excluding the American flag on a flagpole of regulation height, require pre-approval from the HOA Architectural Committee. A week later, Chloe had settled in. To make the place her own, she'd placed a single whimsical garden gnome, a little guy with a blue hat and a fishing pole, by the base of the front steps. He was adorable. 3 days after that, the first letter arrived. It was on official HOA letterhead. Violation notice. Willow Lake Shores HOA. Property, 112 Lakeview Drive. Owner Mark. Infraction. Regulation 12.1. Unapproved exterior decoration. Description. 1.1. Non-conforming, unapproved garden gnome of garish coloration placed in front yard. Action required. Remove said item immediately. Fine. $50. Waivable upon compliance within 48 hours. I laughed. Then I showed Chloe. She looked crestfallen. "Seriously? My gnome?" "Don't worry, sweetie," I said. "I'll handle it." I emailed Brenda, politely explaining that it was a small, harmless decoration and requesting retroactive approval. Her response was swift and frosty. "Mark, the rules are in place for a reason. We cannot make exceptions for one homeowner's subjective idea of harmless. This sets a precedent. The gnome must go. Regards, Brenda, HOA president." To keep the peace, I told Chloe to move the gnome to the back deck, which was technically visible from the lake but, as I would later learn, a gray area in the bylaws. I thought that was the end of it. I was so naive. The next violation arrived 2 weeks later. This one was for the succulents. Chloe had arranged a beautiful collection of them in a tiered stand on the front porch. Violation notice. Infraction. Regulation 5.4. Non-uniform planters. Description. Assortment of potted plants in containers of varying, non-cohesive materials. Terracotta, ceramic, plastic, creating a cluttered appearance.
Fine. $75.
This was getting ridiculous. I called Brenda. Her tone was that of a principal scolding a delinquent child. "Mark, the community standard is for uniform, stained wood planters. Those little cacti are fine, but they need to be in the correct containers. It's all in the packet. Brenda, they're my daughter's plants on her own porch. This feels a bit excessive. The rules are the rules, she said, her voice sharp. We can't have the neighborhood looking like a flea market. That's when I stopped being politely annoyed and started getting strategically pissed. I'm an IT project manager by trade. My superpower is documentation and process. Brenda had just activated it. I started a digital folder. I scanned every violation notice. I saved every email. I began a deep, line-by-line dive into the HOA bylaws, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC and RS. It was drier than week-old toast, but I was on a mission. And then I found it, the motherlode. While the rules about gnomes and succulents were petty, there were bigger, more serious rules that were being blatantly ignored. And not by me. Bylaw 3.1.f. No member of the HOA board shall be in violation of any standing rule for more than 10 days after being notified. The board was supposed to lead by example. Regulation 9.3. No structure, permanent or temporary, may be erected on a property without prior architectural committee approval, including sheds, gazebos, and permanent dog enclosures. Regulation 11.2. Commercial vehicles in excess of 3/4 ton capacity are prohibited from being parked on the street or in driveways for more than a 2-hour period. I grabbed my phone, turned on the location data for photos, and went for a walk around the neighborhood, specifically past Brenda's house. And oh, the hypocrisy was beautiful. There, in Brenda's backyard, was a large, permanent-looking, vinyl-sided shed. I cross-referenced the community maps and architectural plans I'd requested, as was my right as a homeowner. No shed was ever approved. And parked in her driveway? Not one, but 2 vehicles for her husband's landscaping business. A massive Ford F-350 dually and a trailer with the company name plastered on the side. They hadn't moved in weeks. I took pictures. I took videos. I documented dates and times. I had her dead to rights. The climax arrived on the first Saturday of the month. Chloe was moving the last of her bigger art supplies, a large easel and some canvases. My truck was, again, parked on the street. We were carrying a bulky, but not heavy, drafting table to the cabin. And then we heard the sirens. A single police cruiser pulled up behind my truck. My blood ran cold. Chloe looked terrified. An officer got out. "Afternoon, sir. We got a call about a possible burglary in progress. Someone reported a suspicious vehicle and people removing large items from the house." I felt a hot, quiet rage settle over me. I looked over at Brenda's house. The living room curtain flicked shut. I explained the situation to the officer, showed him my ID and my keys to the property. He was apologetic. "Happens all the time in these HOA neighborhoods," he said with a sympathetic sigh. "Sorry to bother you." That was it. The final straw. Brenda hadn't just been petty. She had weaponized the police against me and scared my daughter on a hunch that she knew was false. The next HOA meeting was that Tuesday. I dressed in a button-down shirt, printed my evidence packet, and arrived early. The community room was full of about 30 residents. Brenda sat at the head table, gavel in hand, looking smug. The meeting droned on through minutes and treasurer reports. Then came homeowner concerns. I stood up. "Brenda, Mark from 112 Lakeview. I have a few concerns I'd like to address." She gave me a patronizing smile. "Of course, Mark. Is this about the gnome?" "I'm afraid the board's decision is final." A few people tittered. "No," I said calmly. "This is about leadership and hypocrisy." The room went silent. "You've issued me fines for a garden gnome and some flower pots. You called the police on me while I was moving my daughter in. Meanwhile, you are in direct, flagrant violation of at least 2 major HOA regulations." Her smile vanished. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." I held up my phone. "I have here time-stamped photos of a large, unapproved vinyl shed in your backyard. According to Bylaw 3.1.f, as a board member, you have 10 days to rectify such a violation after notification. This shed has been there for at least 6 months. according to satellite imagery. I clicked to the next photo. I also have documented evidence of not one, but two commercial vehicles over 3/4 ton capacity parked at your residence for weeks on end, in direct violation of Regulation 11.2. I walked to the front and placed printed copies of the photos and the relevant bylaws on the table before her. Her face was a mask of purple fury. You have no right," she sputtered. "I have every right," I said, my voice still calm but now projecting to the entire room. "The same right you had to fine me for a potted plant. The only difference is, my complaints are about actual, documented violations of our community's rules. Rules you are sworn to uphold." The room erupted. Turned out I wasn't the only one. An older man stood up and complained about a $100 fine he got for having a rainbow flag. A young couple talked about being harassed for their kids' chalk drawings on the driveway. A wave of pent-up frustration washed over the room, and it was all directed at Brenda. I made my final move. Therefore, pursuant to Bylaw 4.5, I move for a vote of no confidence in HOA President Brenda, and I nominate a new, interim president to oversee a full review and revision of these petty and oppressive rules. The ayes were deafening. Brenda was ousted that night. She gathered her things and stormed out, and I swear I heard her dog yap at me in solidarity. I was elected interim president mostly because I was the one with the binder. The first things I did? Rescinded all fines related to aesthetic violations from the last year. Formed a committee to rewrite the bylaws, focusing on actual property value and safety, not gnome-related paranoia. Approved Chloe's gnome, retroactively and officially. He now sits proudly by the front steps, wearing a tiny HOA-approved badge she 3D printed for him. The shed? Brenda had to apply for retroactive approval, which the new board granted with a stern warning. The trucks? They disappeared, probably to a paid storage lot. The neighborhood now has a community garden, people have flags of all kinds, and the grass is allowed to be a living, breathing entity that doesn't require a micrometer to manage. It's amazing what can happen when you fight pettiness not with more pettiness, but with a calm, well-documented, and utterly devastating knowledge of the rules. Sometimes, the best way to beat a Karen is to become the chairman of the board.